Although the entire process of square foot gardening is rewarding, the best time you'll spend is harvesting all your yummy food. With traditional gardening, there is usually too much produce, making it not only tiresome work, but also wasteful since most people can't eat it all before it goes bad. When you plan carefully, you are growing almost exactly what you need. I'm Dr. Denise DeBusk, and in this video, I'll cover the timing of the harvest so you can pick at the peak ripeness, storing your harvested crops, replanting a grid square after the first crop is harvested, extending your harvest, and putting your square foot garden to bed. If you are a first-time gardener, you may have a more difficult time knowing exactly when to pick your crops. With some crops, ripeness will occur suddenly, and you will need to harvest the entire crop quickly to have the maximum flavor. Other crops bear fruit a little at a time, providing you several weeks or even months to harvest them. I love going outside and finding a few strawberries ready and others almost ready. Certain vegetables like herbs and leafy vegetables can be harvested as soon as they start producing leaves until the first fall frost. One clue as to when a crop will be ready for picking is found on the seed label. Most seed packets will list a time period after planting or sprouting when the vegetable is ready to harvest, although this can vary based on your environmental conditions. In your workbook, I listed the ripeness indicators for some vegetables. The Square Foot Gardening book has additional vegetables listed. Let me give you a few examples when it comes to harvesting. For broccoli, they are harvested when the heads are full, but before the buds open. You can see in the left photo what it looks like when the buds open. It is no longer a tight head. One of my friends sent me this photo after he missed his harvesting window while going on vacation. Oops. With broccoli, you can cut the stalk down 4 inches from the top of the head. You will see tiny heads forming along the stem. Don't cut those. If you leave them, you will get a second or even a third harvest of smaller heads as seen in the photo on the right. For leaf lettuce, you can harvest the leaves on the outside of the stem using scissors after they are 3 inches long. It is best to harvest them in the morning after you have watered them. I put the leaves in an ice water bath after I pick them, and it allows them to stay fresh in the refrigerator for up to 2 weeks. Once the lettuce starts to bolt, meaning that it is trying to set flowers, the leaves are overripe and they are quite bitter. The top photo shows how my lettuce looked before I was going to harvest them. Several of them looked taller. This is bolting. Not only did the plants that looked taller taste bitter, but the entire batch of lettuce was overripe and they all went into the compost. I decided to harvest the rest of my lettuce, and you can see the pile of lettuce I had, far too much to eat in 2 weeks. One thing you can do for lettuce is to stagger planting the seeds every 2 weeks so that they don't bolt all at the same time. Thankfully, I had already harvested several times from the lettuces that bolted. Picking, plucking, twisting, or cutting, all of these are ways to harvest crops. Which is the right way depends on the plant. Here are a few simple tools you should have for harvesting. Scissors are good for snipping leaves from leafy vegetables and herbs. They do clean cuts and don't damage the plant stems, and leaf vegetables will continue producing for a long time. A sharp knife is good for severing fruits and vegetables with thick stems. It is better to cut off produce from melons, cabbage, and broccoli rather than pulling them off so you don't damage the plant stems. A garden fork is good for digging large root vegetables like potatoes and sweet potatoes. You can use a hand trowel to harvest smaller root vegetables like carrots and beets. Instead of a knife, you can use pruners for harvesting peppers, eggplant, and tomatoes. Make sure you clean your tools, especially as you move between your crops while harvesting. Viruses, bacteria, and fungi can be transmitted from plant to plant when you snip plants with tools. You can sterilize your tools by wiping them with a cloth moistened with isopropyl alcohol. Do it each time you move between plants. You'll get the most out of leafy vegetables such as leaf lettuce, Swiss chard, and herbs by harvesting continuously. This will also delay their bolting. Once you are finished harvesting a square, you can pull out the rest of the crop, prepare the growing medium, and plant the next crop. First, remove any debris such as dead leaves, stems, or roots. Then add 1 trowel of fresh compost, mix it in, and smooth it over. That's it. You can typically plant 3 crops in 1 square during the growing season. For example, you can begin the spring with a root crop like carrots, move to a warm season crop like tomatoes, then finish off with a leaf crop like lettuce, spinach, or Swiss chard. It is often recommended to rotate your crops. For traditional gardens, this is often due to depleting nutrients, but that is not the case if you use mouse mix because you are adding in compost each time. The second reason for this is to reduce the buildup of pests and soil pathogens. If you plant the same crop twice in a row, then the new planting may have any of the same problems from an earlier crop. You need to handle produce with the utmost care from the moment you pick them to the moment you consume them. For example, when you are digging potatoes, don't toss them into a bucket, but set them into a basket gently. Don't crush strawberries in a deep container where the weight will bruise them, but lay them out on a shallow tray as you harvest them. You should also keep good, healthy fruit from diseased fruit. I pull off leaves and place diseased produce off to the side, not in my basket. If you have inspected your plants throughout the growing season and removed all the bad leaves and fruit, then you will likely harvest more good produce than bad. Did you know that 25% of all fruits and vegetables are not eaten because they are damaged or begin to spoil before they can be eaten? Knowing how to store your produce will minimize the amount of waste. After you harvest fruits and vegetables, they begin to change chemically immediately after you harvest them. Some will change slowly, gradually ripening to a greater degree. For example, tomatoes can be harvested before they are fully ripe, and they can ripen on your countertop. Other vegetables will begin to deteriorate the moment they are picked and should be eaten immediately. Strawberries have a very short life. It is often best to eat them the same day you pick them unless you are freezing or canning them. Other vegetables will remain pretty much the same as when you picked them. Onions and potatoes can keep for many months if stored correctly. In the workbook, you will see a table of short-term storage recommendations for most produce. Many fruits and some vegetables can be juiced as they move past their full ripeness, but before they begin to spoil. You can use a good blender or juicer and a recipe book to make full use of all of the berries and vegetables. Another use is to can your produce. It takes some work, but canning and other forms of preserving are great ways to keep ripe fruit and vegetables to eat whenever you want them. Fruits and vegetables can be canned, pickled, fermented, or otherwise preserved so you can enjoy them during the winter and beyond. There is little cost to this. 2 or 3 tomato bushes can provide enough tomatoes to fill a pantry shelf with canned tomatoes. Carrots and asparagus can be pickled to serve as appetizers. Cucumbers make wonderful pickles when canned and brined, and cabbage makes great sauerkraut when fermented. Another way to preserve fruits and vegetables is to dry them. The drying process actually increases and concentrates the flavor while keeping all the nutritional value. You can air dry many fruits and vegetables, but a dehydrator can speed up the process. You can also freeze many fruits and vegetables when they are at their peak ripeness. Then thaw them whenever you need them for cooking. Here are some tips. Some vegetables do better if you blanch them first, which means toss them into boiling water for 3 minutes, then place them in ice water. This stops the enzyme action and allows them to retain their nutrients and keep their shape. The blanching time is very important and varies depending on the vegetable and its size. I've linked to a website that provides blanching times under the resources. Blanch tomatoes and cut them into cubes and freeze them. Then use them in recipes or salsa. Kale leaves can be frozen for up to 6 weeks. After that, they turn bitter. Strawberries and other berries will keep for a year if frozen whole. You can freeze zucchini chopped, sliced, or grated. Herbs can be frozen and kept almost indefinitely. Hardier herbs like rosemary, dill, thyme, bay, or sage can be frozen on the stem. I've seen more tender herbs chopped up and frozen with a little water in ice cube trays for easy storage. You can freeze basil as a pesto mixed with olive oil. For cucumbers, peel them first, then slice and freeze them. If you live in a climate where you have a basement, you may be able to set up a root cellar. If you don't have a basement, you can create the conditions of a root cellar in another area, such as a closet or unused room, because it is all about the climate and conditions more than location. You need the following conditions. First, you need humidity. Find the wettest, most humid corner in the basement or space. Root crops prefer a humidity level of 80 to 90%. You could also add a humidifier if you live in a dry area. Next, you need ventilation. You need good airflow. A true root cellar has an intake and exhaust fan, but fans can also work. Lastly, you need shelving. Have shelves that tolerate the weight of produce and can handle humidity. Adjustable shelves are good. And that's it. With this setup, you can increase the shelf life of your produce. One of the huge advantages of square foot gardening is that the gardening season can be stretched into the early spring and the late fall to produce 30 to 50% more produce. You can start earlier in the spring by growing a cool season crop and protecting it with a dome to keep it warm. To plant in early spring, warm up the Mel's mix by placing a sheet of clear or black plastic over the top of the box and weigh it down. After a couple of sunny days, remove the plastic and take off the grid and mix up the soil with a trowel so that the warmer soil mixes with the lower layers. Cover the box again and wait another 2 to 3 days. Then you are ready to plant with either seeds or plants you started indoors on a warm afternoon. If you are delayed, continue to cover the soil and mix every few days. Make sure you have hardened any seedlings first. Once you plant, cover the box with a plastic sheet or a protective dome depending if you planted seeds or seedlings. To control the climate in your garden, make sure you vent the dome daily. As it becomes warmer, you can lift the dome away from the box more and more. A light frost will not hurt cool season plants if they are well established, but too much heat can. You can extend cool season crops when it is warm out by planting varieties that are known to tolerate the heat. Look for words like long-standing, slow to bolt, and heat resistant on the seed packet or seedling label. Additionally, providing some shade will help them from bolting. You need to protect them from the noontime sun. You can place a garden where there is more shade or cover them with shade cloth over a frame. A thick layer of mulch on the soil will also keep the soil cooler and provide them with more moisture holding capacity. To start warm season summer crops early, you can either plant these seeds in their grid squares and cover them with a protective dome for about 2 weeks before typical planting time, or start seeds indoors. To extend warm season summer crops into fall, you will need to protect them from frost using either the PVC arch or covered wagon frame covered with frost cloth. You can also cover the soil with a loose layer of straw to keep the soil warmer. You may be able to get another round of cool season crops in the fall before the extreme hard freezes hit, depending on your hardiness zone. You need to watch the weather and protect them as needed. In the winter, warmer areas can grow cool season crops with some frost protection as needed. When it is time to close up shop, make sure you remove dead plants and debris, add some compost and smooth it over so that it is ready for the spring. You can remove the grid, clean it and fold it, or leave it on the box. Make sure you take any notes on the highlights of the garden as well as notes for improvements, special varieties to get, and tips. Feel free to decorate it for the holidays. Thanksgiving can have an arrangement of pumpkins and a bale of hay, or even a scarecrow. For Christmas, decorate vertical frames with lights and place decor inside. Allow your garden to bring you joy all year long. So what are your next steps? This section discussed how to know when to harvest as well as what to do with that harvest, including short-term as well as long-term storage. For your plan, check to see when you need to harvest your crops so you are prepared. Think about what you may do with your harvest. To keep the season going, what are your plans to extend the season? You can do one technique, all of them, or none of them. Hopefully you got some useful tips on how to harvest and store your produce, as well as extending the season.